Why did ancient humans create rules? Not modern laws. Not police. Not courts. Not printed documents. But the first simple rules. The first things a group agreed to follow. Imagine a small group of ancient humans standing in the dark. There is no government, no judge, no written contract, no official border, no police officer, no school, no country, no money, just people, food, fire, fear, and one very difficult question. How do we live together without destroying the group? At first, the answer seems simple. Maybe humans made rules because they became smarter. Maybe rules appeared when people became more civilized. Maybe ancient leaders simply wanted power. Maybe kings shouted commands and everyone obeyed. That sounds obvious. But it is not the whole story. Because intelligence alone does not create order. A smart person can still lie. A smart person can still steal. A smart person can still break a promise. A smart group can still become dangerous to itself. The real problem was not just intelligence. The real problem was living together. One human alone is simple. 2 humans are already complicated. 10 humans need trust. 100 humans need memory. 1,000 humans need rules. And when humans began living in larger groups, something changed forever. They could no longer depend only on family. They could no longer depend only on memory. They could no longer know every face. They could no longer remember every promise. They needed something outside the mind of one person. Something the whole group could point to. Something that could survive anger. Something that could survive death. Something that could say, when emotions become too loud, this is what happens next. That something became rules. Before rules, every conflict was personal. If someone took your food, it was you against them. If someone broke a promise, it was your anger against their excuse. If 2 families argued over land, it could become one family against another. There was no neutral idea standing between them. There was only memory, emotion, status, fear, and revenge. Rules changed that. Rules moved the problem outside the people. Instead of you against me, it became both of us looking at the same standard. A rule does not have to be perfect to change the group. It only has to be shared. That is what made rules so powerful. They created expectation. If I do this, the group will respond in that way. If I take what belongs to someone else, something will happen. If I keep my promise, I can be trusted. If I break my promise, other people will remember. That simple pattern changed human life. Because predictable behavior creates trust. And trust allows strangers to cooperate. This is one of the deepest secrets of human history. Humans did not take over the world because they were the strongest. They were not. A lion was stronger. A bear was stronger. A mammoth was stronger. Humans did not win because they were the fastest. They were not. Many animals could outrun them. Humans did not win because they had claws. They had none. They did not have sharp teeth. They did not have thick fur. They did not have armor. But humans had something stranger. They could create shared ideas. They could imagine invisible things together, then act as if those things were real. A promise is invisible. Trust is invisible. Ownership is invisible. A border is invisible. A debt is invisible. A rule is invisible. But when enough people believe in it, that invisible thing begins to control visible behavior. A person may stop at a line on the ground, not because the line is a wall, but because the group agrees the line matters. A person may return a borrowed tool, not because the tool magically demands it, but because the group agrees promises matter. A person may share food today because they believe someone else will share tomorrow. That belief is not a rock. It is not a weapon. It is not a bone. But it can hold a group together. In a small family, rules can live inside memory. Everyone knows who helped. Everyone knows who was selfish. Everyone knows who shared. Everyone knows who caused trouble. But a village is different. A town is even stranger. And a city is almost impossible without rules. Because in a city, you meet people you do not know. You trade with strangers. You walk past people you will never meet again. You depend on people whose names you do not remember. Someone grows grain. Someone makes pottery. Someone repairs tools. Someone guards storage. Someone carries water. Someone teaches children. Someone makes decisions. Suddenly, life becomes a network. And a network cannot run only on personal memory. It needs shared expectations. This is why ancient rules were not just about punishment. They were about coordination. A farm needs rules about land. A market needs rules about exchange. A family needs rules about care. A road needs rules about movement. A storehouse needs rules about grain. A village needs rules about conflict. A city needs rules about almost everything. Without rules, people have to negotiate every moment from the beginning. Who owns this field? Who can use this well? Who gets this harvest? Who repairs this wall? Who decides when two people disagree? Who pays back a debt? Who takes care of a child? Who protects the old? Who leads during danger? If every question must be answered again and again, the group wastes energy. But rules save energy. They turn chaos into pattern. They turn confusion into expectation. They turn arguments into procedures. They turn private anger into public order. This does not mean ancient laws were always fair. They were not. Many ancient laws protected kings, elites, men, landowners, and powerful families. Many rules were unequal. Many punishments were harsh. Many people had fewer rights than others. So we should not imagine ancient law as a perfect moral invention. It was not perfect, but it was important, because even unfair rules reveal something deep about society. They show that humans were trying to make power visible. They were trying to define what happens next. They were trying to create a structure bigger than one person's mood. A command disappears after it is spoken. A memory changes every time it is retold. But a rule, especially when written down, can remain. That is why writing changed rules so deeply. For a long time, rules lived in speech. Elders told them. Parents repeated them. Groups remembered them. Stories carried them. But spoken rules can be forgotten. Spoken rules can change. Spoken rules can be twisted by whoever has power. Then some societies began writing rules down. On clay. On stone. On tablets. On monuments. This was a massive change. A written rule could outlive the person who first spoke it. A written rule could be shown to others. A written rule could be copied. A written rule could be taught. A written rule could make authority visible. About 4,000 years ago, ancient Mesopotamia had written law codes. One early example is linked to Ur-Nammu. Later, the famous laws of Hammurabi were carved into stone. These laws were not modern laws. They were not equal in the way many people today would expect. They came from a world of kings, temples, farmers, debts, families, workers, and social ranks. But they show us something powerful. Ancient societies understood that rules needed memory. Not just human memory. Social memory. A rule carved into stone says, this is not just one person's opinion. This is the order the society claims to follow. Again, that order may be unfair. It may protect power. It may serve the elite. But it still changes the relationship between people and authority. Because now the rule can be seen. Now the rule can be pointed to. Now the rule can be taught to the next generation. Now the rule can become part of the world people live inside. This is the hidden mechanism. Rules turn fear into expectation. They turn uncertainty into a map. They tell people how to move through the group. They tell people what the group will accept. They tell people what the group will reject. They create the feeling that tomorrow will not be completely random. And that feeling is one of the foundations of civilization. Think about trade. Trade is not just exchanging objects. Trade is trust in motion. If I give you grain today, I need to believe I will receive something back. If I lend you a tool, I need to believe you will return it. If I work for you, I need to believe you will pay me, feed me, or honor the agreement. Without trust, trade becomes risky. Without trade, specialization becomes hard. Without specialization, cities become weaker. Rules help strangers depend on each other. And strangers are the secret of large societies. A small family can survive with love, memory, and direct loyalty. A tribe can survive with reputation and shared stories. But a city needs more. A city needs people who do not personally love each other to still behave in predictable ways. That is a strange achievement. We are so used to it that we forget how strange it is. Every day, modern people trust strangers. You cross a road because you expect drivers to follow traffic rules. You buy food because you expect the seller not to poison you. You use money because you expect other people to accept it. You go to school because you accept a system of teachers, grades, schedules, and rules. You work at a company because people agree to roles, contracts, pay, and responsibility. You use the internet because invisible rules allow messages, accounts, passwords, payments, and platforms to function. Modern life is full of rules. Most of them are invisible until they break. When a traffic light stops working, suddenly you see the rule. When someone breaks a contract, suddenly you see the rule. When trust disappears from a market, suddenly you see the rule. When people no longer believe an institution is fair, suddenly the invisible structure becomes visible. This is why rules can feel boring, but matter so much. They are like the floor under your feet. You do not think about the floor when it is steady. You only notice it when it cracks. Ancient humans were slowly building that floor. They were not only making commands. They were building systems. They were creating a way for many people to act together. They were turning memory into structure. They were turning promises into expectations. They were turning invisible agreements into civilization. And this connects to a much bigger human ability. Humans can cooperate around shared stories. A rule is a kind of story. It says in this group, this action means this. This object belongs to that person. This promise must be kept. This leader has this responsibility. This land has this boundary. This debt must be repaid. This wrong must be corrected. The rule gives meaning to behavior. Without shared meaning, the same action can be seen in many ways. Taking grain could be theft, or survival, or payment, or revenge, or a mistake. Rules help the group decide what the action means. That is why rules are not just about controlling, they are about creating shared reality. A society is not only built from wood, stone, roads, and walls. It is built from meanings. This is mine. That is yours. This is allowed. That is forbidden. This counts as a promise. That counts as a debt. This person has authority. That person has responsibility. These meanings are invisible, but they shape the world. Look at money. A bill is just paper. A number in a bank account is just data. But people act as if it has value because the system agrees it has value. Look at a classroom. A room with chairs is just a room. But when people accept the roles of teacher and student, it becomes a school. Look at a courtroom. It is just a building unless people believe the process has authority. Look at a border. Often, it is just a line on a map. But people live, travel, fight, vote, and identify around that line. The modern world is not less ruled by invisible agreements than the ancient world. It is more ruled by them. The difference is that our rules are deeper, larger, and harder to see. Ancient rules may have been carved on stone. Modern rules are written in books, databases, algorithms, contracts, constitutions, school policies, workplace systems, and social norms. Some rules are official. Some are unspoken. Some are fair. Some are not. Some protect people. Some protect power. Some create trust. Some create fear. But all of them show the same human pattern. We survive in large groups by creating shared expectations. That is the real story of why ancient humans created rules. Not because they were perfect. Not because they were suddenly moral. Not because they became modern overnight. They created rules because groups without structure fall apart. They created rules because memory was not enough. They created rules because strangers needed a way to trust each other. They created rules because cooperation becomes harder as society grows. They created rules because anger needed limits. They created rules because promises needed shape. They created rules because power needed a public face. And once rules existed, they changed what humans could build. A group with rules could store grain. A group with rules could divide work. A group with rules could settle disputes. A group with rules could trade with strangers. A group with rules could plan for the future. A group with rules could teach children not only what happened yesterday, but what should happen tomorrow. This is where civilization begins to look less like a collection of buildings and more like a network of agreements. A city is not just walls. It is rules about who may enter, who may trade, who may build, who may judge, who may lead, who may owe, who may inherit, who may speak, who may decide. A nation is not just land. It is shared memory, shared rules, shared symbols, and shared belief. A company is not just an office. It is roles, contracts, goals, duties, and trust. The internet is not just wires and screens. It is protocols, passwords, permissions, terms, standards, and expectations. Every large human system depends on rules, and every rule depends on belief. If enough people stop believing the rule matters, the rule becomes weak. If enough people stop trusting the system behind the rule, the system begins to crack. That is why law and trust are always connected. A law can exist on paper, but if people do not believe it applies, if people do not believe it is enforced, or if people do not believe it is legitimate, then the law loses power. Ancient humans may not have used modern words like legitimacy, institutions, or social order, but they lived with the same problem. How do you make people follow something they cannot touch? How do you make an invisible rule feel real? The answer was repetition. Story, ritual, teaching, punishment, reward, memory, writing, public display, and group belief. Children learned the rules. Adults repeated the rules. Leaders used the rules. Communities defended the rules. Over time, rules became part of what people called normal. And once something becomes normal, it becomes powerful. Because people no longer ask why it exists every day. They simply live inside it. That is both the strength and danger of rules. Good rules can protect people. Bad rules can trap people. Clear rules can create trust. Unfair rules can create resentment. Shared rules can build civilization. Broken rules can tear it apart. So the point is not that rules are always good. The point is that rules are one of the deepest tools humans ever created. They are social technology. A spear changes what one body can do. A fire changes what one group can eat. A wool changes what people can move. Writing changes what people can remember. But rules change what strangers can do together. That may be one of the most powerful inventions in history. Because the human body is weak. One person can do very little. One person cannot build a city. One person cannot store a civilization's memory. One person cannot maintain trade routes, schools, courts, farms, roads, and digital networks. But many people can. If they can coordinate, if they can trust, if they can share expectations, if they can agree on what happens next. That is what ancient rules made possible. They gave cooperation a skeleton. They gave society a memory. They gave strangers a bridge. And they gave the future a shape. So when we look at an ancient stone tablet, we should not only see old laws. We should see humans trying to solve one of the hardest problems on Earth. How can many fragile, emotional, selfish, generous, fearful, intelligent creatures live together without falling apart? The answer was never simple. It still is not simple. But part of the answer was this. Create rules. Teach them. Remember them. Write them down. Argue about them. Change them. Protect the good ones. Question the bad ones. And understand that every society is built not only from what people make with their hands, but from what people agree to hold in their minds. Civilization is not just stone. It is not just cities. It is not just kings. It is not just technology. Civilization is the invisible agreement that tells strangers how to live together. And maybe that is why rules feel so ordinary. They are everywhere. They are under everything. They are so close to us that we forget to see them. But ancient humans saw the problem clearly. Without rules, a group is only a crowd. With rules, a crowd can become a society. And with enough shared trust, memory, and belief, a society can become a civilization.